Welcome into today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. We got a lot to cover today. We knew this was coming, but the floodgates are opening with additional states wanting to follow Colorado's lead. A day after the Colorado Supreme Court disqualified former President Donald Trump from appearing on the state's ballots in 2024, California Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, and she is Kounalakis, that's an appropriate name, I got sidetracked there, is asking the Golden State Secretary of State to explore every legal option to do the same, to keep Donald Trump off of the California ballot. We'll jump into that in just a moment. The IRS said yesterday that it's going to waive penalty fees for people who failed to pay back taxes that total less than $100,000 per year for tax years 2020 and 2021. Harvard's plagiarism dilemma shows how DEI demands lower standards, Wall Street Journal columnist Jason Riley argues in a recent opinion piece. And if you could know when you're going to die, would you want to have that information? Would you change how you live your life now? Researchers say using artificial intelligence, they can now tell you within almost an 80% chance of when you will meet your maker.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
Your story was powerful when you delivered it up at the General Assembly. People are still talking about your story.
The CON has gone away in the state of South Carolina, and I want to personally thank you.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
A day after the Colorado Supreme Court disqualified former President Donald Trump from appearing on the state's ballot in 2024, California wants to do the same. The Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Kounalakis, is asking the Golden State Secretary of State to, quote, explore every legal option that is available for California. Kounalakis sent a letter to Secretary of State Shirley Weber on Wednesday, referencing Colorado's recent ruling, which stated Trump was ineligible to appear on the state's ballot as a presidential candidate because of his role in, quote, inciting an insurrection on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Kounalakis wrote, "This decision is about honoring the rule of law in our country and protecting the fundamental pillars of our democracy." She wrote specifically, the Colorado Supreme Court held in Anderson versus Griswold that Trump's insurrection disqualifies him under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to stand for presidential reelection. Because the candidate is ineligible, the court ruled it would be a wrongful act for the Colorado Secretary of State to list him as a candidate on that state's presidential primary ballot. The gubernatorial candidate in California told the Secretary of State, quote, must stand on the right side of history and is obligated to determine if the former president is ineligible to be on the ballot for the same reasons he was deemed ineligible in Colorado. Kounalakis said Colorado's decision could be the basis for California making the same decision. She wrote, the Constitution is clear. You must be 35 years old and not be an insurrectionist. Though in an earlier version of the letter that hit social media, the lieutenant governor wrote, you must be 40 years old. So she did a quick edit there. Everybody should know that it's 35. She also said that it's not a matter of political gamesmanship, but instead is a dire matter that puts at stake the sanctity of our Constitution and our democracy. Suddenly, Californians are interested in our Constitution. As you know, Colorado's disqualification was made according to the ruling under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. The 4-3 ruling is stayed until January 4th because of likely appeals. Trump, of course, promising that there will be many appeals and that they will use every means they have to challenge this ruling. 3 justices on the Colorado Supreme Court dissented, writing, we do not reach these conclusions lightly. We are mindful of the magnitude and weight of the questions now before us. We all likewise mindful of our solemn duty to apply the law without fear or favor and without being swayed by public reaction to the decisions that the law mandates we reach. In a previous ruling, Colorado District Judge Sarah Wallace allowed Trump to stay on the ballot, but found that Trump, quote, engaged in insurrection for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said in a statement that she would continue to follow court guidance on this important issue. She wrote, "The Colorado Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump is barred from the Colorado ballot for inciting the January 6th insurrection and attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. This decision may be appealed," she wrote. Now, just as a reminder, the 14th Amendment reads like this: "No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress, or elector or president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who have previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability." Disqualification lawsuits, we know, relating to Trump's appearance or on the ballot are pending in 13 other states, Texas, Nevada, Wisconsin, and actually here in South Carolina as well. We'll continue to follow this, because I can tell you this is going to dominate the news cycle over the next couple of weeks. Changing the subject, Harvard cannot fire embattled President Claudine Gay because it risks undermining the entire diversity enterprise, according to the Wall Street Journal's Jason Riley in an opinion piece published yesterday. Harvard's top governing body has stood by Gay following intense backlash over the controversial comments she made about anti-Semitism during a recent congressional hearing, and accusations that she plagiarized several of her academic writings. Riley, a Fox News contributor, pointed out how both Gay and the University of Pennsylvania president Liz McGill were guilty of indulging anti-Semitism on campus, but faced different fates. McGill, as you probably know, resigned on December the 9th. He argued, "You don't need a Harvard degree to understand that Miss Gay, the school's first black president, advances the diversity imperatives of her institution in ways that Ms. McGill, who is white, does not." He went on to write, "Anyone suggesting that Ms. Gay deserves the same treatment as Ms. McGill stands accused of racism by liberal elites who maintain that all black people not named Clarence Thomas are off limits to criticism." Riley, by the way, if you don't know, is a black conservative writer. NAACP President Derek Johnson and others have argued that Ms. Gay is being singled out because of racism. Johnson claimed that the attacks on her leadership are nothing more than political theatrics advancing a white supremacist agenda. They're always going to throw the race card in, aren't they? Mr. Riley wrote, "Gay's defenders for being as though her academic qualifications earned her to the top position at the elite school and it had nothing to do with the race, that's baloney, and they know it," he wrote. He contrasted Miss Gay's achievements with her two predecessors, Lawrence Bacow and Drew Gilpin Faust, as well as Liz McGill's, to argue Gay wasn't hired for her academic chops, he wrote. "The truth is that Miss Gay's defenders don't want to acknowledge that her administrative experience and scholarly credentials don't begin to match those of other people in similar posts." The columnist referenced recent comments by billionaire Harvard donor Bill Ackman accusing the university of hiring based on diversity, equity, and inclusion criteria rather than merit. After speaking with the top faculty at the university, Mr. Ackman wrote on X, quote, "It is abundantly clear that straight white males are discriminated against in recruitment and advancement at Harvard University. That is also apparently true to a somewhat lesser extent for men who are Asians or of Indian origin," he continued, blaming the university's DEI office. Riley called this reliance on DEI criteria the worst kept secret and academia. He argued that Harvard was now reaping the consequences of these racial policies, writing, Harvard's dilemma illustrates a broader practical problem with racial preference policies. Once you lower standards for hiring administrators or admitting students, you're forced to lower standards for evaluating the conduct and performance. For purposes of window dressing, people who have no business running elite institutions such as Harvard have been put in charge of people who have no business teaching or matriculating there, he wrote. What could possibly go wrong? Good question. Good question. By the way, while we're talking about Harvard, a House of Representatives committee has expanded its inquiry against Harvard University's handling of anti-Semitism on campus to include its embattled president, Ms. Claudine Gay, who, of course, is facing a myriad of plagiarism allegations. The chair of the Committee on Education and the Workforce, Representative Virginia Fox, she's a Republican from North Carolina, yesterday sent a 4-page letter to Penny Pritzker, the head of the school's governing board, alleging that Harvard applies a different standard of academic integrity to faculty members than to students. The committee cited the university's honor code as justification for the probe. Fox wrote, the Harvard College Honor Code, which is in effect for the academic community of Harvard College beginning in the fall of 2015, provides members of the Harvard College community commit themselves to producing academic work of integrity. Fox writes, does Harvard hold its faculty and academic leadership to the same standards? The Congresswoman highlighted the Ivy League university's use of federal funding, saying that the funds are contingent on Harvard maintaining compliance with its accreditor, the New England Commission of Higher Education. This commission requires that each of its accredited universities works to prevent cheating and plagiarism, as well as to deal forthrightly with any instances in which they occur. Fox said that Harvard holds its students to the commission standards of plagiarism. She writes in the letter, Harvard does hold its students to these high academic and ethical standards. In the 2021-2022 school year, the Harvard College Honor Council investigated 42 incidents of plagiarism, 35 allegations of exam cheating, 19 other honor code violations. 70 of these 100 cases, she said, resulted in a finding of responsibility, and 46 resulted in academic probation or mandatory withdrawal. Again, does Harvard hold its faculty and its own president to the same standards? She asked. That's a pretty obvious no, because it's very concerning that you have the president of an elite university like this having to fight back allegations of plagiarism in the middle of all this. The letter said that the committee's concern is that if plagiarism standards are not applied consistently, then it cheapens the university's academic credibility. And that's a true statement. It does, doesn't it? If your president, and again, these are allegations, it doesn't appear that they're too interested in investigating, although it looks like the U.S. Congress may help them out with that. But if it's found that Ms. Gay is guilty of plagiarism, should she not be removed immediately? And we all know why she has the position. I mean, Mr. Riley, in his opinion piece, hit the nail on the head, as we like to say. She's there for one reason, the color of her skin, because otherwise she doesn't qualify. The House Committee on Education and Workforce demanded that Pritzker produce internal documents on allegations of Gay's plagiarism, disciplinary actions taken against students at the school accused of the same thing, plagiarism and communications. Fox asked Pritzker to provide a written response by December 29th. We'll see if, in fact, they abide by that. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Love to get your comments. You can send me a quick text on the Truth text line. You can also leave me a quick voice message. And as always, your emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So let me ask you a question here. Should a state be allowed to mandate that a business be open on Sunday, particularly if they're closed on Sunday because of their religious beliefs? That's the question being raised in the state of New York. Portions of the Today Show brought to you by PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Just over 3 years ago, I was very fortunate that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas and the team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. I'm so happy that I made that phone call and I set up that first consultation because I soon lost 30 pounds in just a matter of months. And 3 years later, I've been able to maintain that weight because the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition program is not a diet. It is based on the science of nutrition. It's a way to teach you how your relationship with food affects your overall health and your weight. They talk with you about what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. And the best part of this, other than the fact that I've been able to maintain the weight loss for 3 years, how many times have you heard someone who was on a weight loss program, they lost weight, but then within a year gained it back? That's not going to happen with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. They have lifetime maintenance. And when you're on the weight loss phase of it, they provide 80% of the food. So why not go ahead and let's start 2024 off the right way and let's get healthy. You'll see other, in addition to the weight loss, you'll feel better, you'll be able to focus, you'll be able to sleep better. Make that call today, 864-252-4925, 864-252-4925. Go online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers and their fans. So a new bill filed in the New York State Assembly aims to force Chick-fil-A, and you probably saw that coming, didn't you, when I mentioned that a business that typically is not open on Sunday. New York State wants to force Chick-fil-A locations to operate 7 days a week, threatening the fast food chain's longstanding policy of keeping its restaurants closed on Sunday. When the Cathy family started this business many, many years ago, that's one of the things that they made very clear, that they would not require their employees to work on God's day. And they've kept that promise all these years later. The legislation proposed last week in New York would require all food vendors operating, and this is the part you need to understand, this would only apply to those operating at New York rest stops, which, of course, are owned by the New York State Thruway Authority. So it would just be those restaurants affected. But still, regardless of how many may be affected, should the state be able to tell Chick-fil-A that it has to open on Sunday? And the thing is, they're not hiding the fact that they're singling out Chick-fil-A. They actually mention Chick-fil-A in the bill. The bill's justification reads, while there's nothing objectionable about a fast food restaurant closing on a particular day of the week, service areas dedicated to travelers is an inappropriate location for such a restaurant. Publicly owned service areas should use their space to maximally benefit the public. Allowing for retail space to go unused 1/7 of the week or more is a disservice and unnecessary inconvenience to travelers who rely on these service areas. Ever since 1946, when Chick-fil-A was founded, they've closed their doors on Sunday. Chick-fil-A has 3,000 locations across the U.S. The company currently operates 7 restaurants owned by New York's Thruway Authority, and the proposed legislation would impact any future contracts as well. What do you think about this? Should New York State, or any state for that matter, be able to tell Chick-fil-A that they have to open on Sunday? What's your thoughts on that? Send me a quick message on the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Better yet, leave me a quick voice message. Tell me what you think about this. If you could know when you're going to die, would you want to know that? Have you ever thought about that before? An article in the New York Post says that new artificial intelligence, and we've been talking a lot lately about AI because it's changing the way a lot of things are done. Some good, some maybe questionable. But according to this New York Post article, a new artificial intelligence can predict your lifespan pretty accurately. Here's the story. Soon Lehman is the lead author of a December study that was just published that says a newly developed AI death calculator can now forecast when a person will die with eerily exact accuracy. He said, we use the technology behind ChatGPT, something called transformer models, to analyze human lives by representing each person as the sequence of events that happens in their life, using sequence of life events to predict human lives. In the report, the professor of network and complex systems from the Technical University of Denmark and co-authors introduce an algorithm known as Life2Vec, which uses select details of an individual's life, including income, their profession, where they live, health history, and can determine life expectancy with 78% correctness. He said, we use the fact that in a certain sense, human lives share a similarity with language. Just like words follow each other in sentences, events follow each other in human lives. Slightly different than the Chat-GPT, the ever-buzzy bot that tech wizards have employed to help land their dream jobs and write books and curate other things. Life2Vec can compute the life outcomes of a man or woman by closely examining their past. Lehman told the New York Post, who noted that his research team also used a specialized program to foretell people's personalities and decisions to make international moves. He said this model can predict almost anything. He said, we predicted death because it's something people have worked on for many years. He used the instance of insurance companies and their mortality tables and how they underwrite health insurance and life insurance. He said, so we had a good sense of what was possible. Lehman's troop examined a population of 6 million Danish people who varied in sex and age between 2008 and 2020. The analysts used this Life2Vec to discover which of the subjects would likely live for at least 4 years beyond January 1st, 2016. Researchers fed the artificial intelligence specific information on each study participant. He said, using plain language such as, in September 2012, Francisco received 20,000 Danish kroner as a guard at a castle in Elsinore. Or, during her third year at secondary boarding school, Hermione followed 5 elected classes. And just goes on, and they add unique information about each person in the study group. They then assign different digital tokens to each piece of data, which were all quite specifically categorized. I mean, this took a lot of effort. For instance, a forearm fracture has a certain code. Working in a tobacco shop is coded with a certain code. Income is represented by 100 different digital codes based on different income levels. Using this information, Life2Vec almost perfectly predicted who had died by 2020 more than 3/4 of the time, according to the report. Per the study, some of the factors that contribute to earlier death included being male. Males die earlier, have a shorter lifespan, having a mental health diagnosis, or being in a skilled profession. Earning a higher income or being in a leadership role were both linked to longer lives. Lehman emphasized, though, that no study participants were given their death predictions. He said that would be very, very irresponsible, noting that he and his team hope to eventually share more details of their results in a way that protects the privacy of those who are involved in the research. The bot is not currently available to the general public or corporations. However, upon its mass rollout, should it ever become open for mainstream use, he says, the prober says that the artificial intelligence likely won't be used to apprise specific individuals in instances like writing insurance policies or making hiring decisions. You believe that? If this technology ever gets out, do you not think companies will use it to try to predict employees' lives or their own lifespan for that matter? Again, I go back to my original question. If you could predict your lifespan, would you? Would you want to have that information? Lehman insisted that those involved in the study that the predictions would not be used for anything. He said the point of the Life to Vec is to understand what's possible and not possible to predict. If you're not ever going to use it, why do you develop it? I mean, this took years and years to do. So why do it if you're not going to use it? On the Truth text line, boy, you guys sounded off on the Colorado Supreme Court decision this week. Tony says if he thinks Nikki Haley or others is going to jump off the campaign trail because of the ruling, he's crazy. Now, Tony's referencing Vivek Ramaswamy saying that if Trump's not put back on the Colorado ballot, that he's going to drop out. And he called on Nikki Haley, Governor DeSantis, and Chris Christie to do likewise. Tony says he's crazy if he thinks they're going to follow suit. They'll take advantage of this, especially the quitter. I bet if they come across the border thanking Trump, they wouldn't hesitate to close the border. Jeff writes on the Truth text line, the rest of them should remove their name as well, but they will not because I sit back and laugh thinking this is the way they'll beat him. Ace, Joey, it's just awful. It feels like a giant asteroid is screaming towards Earth, and we're waiting for Washington to stop it, yet nothing's being done other than them arguing over who gets to call the shot. God be with us all. That's for sure, Ace. Pete writes, regarding the Colorado Supreme Court decision, it is just a lawfare game. Notice the underline from the court's own judgment buried. Pete attached a piece of the court's ruling, which says, and let me find what he underlined here. If review is sought in the Supreme Court before the stay expires on January 4th, 2024, then the stay shall remain in place and the Secretary will continue to be required to include President Trump's name on the 2024 presidential primary ballot. Thank you, Pete. I'm going to take your word for it that this did, in fact, come out of the actual ruling. Because if this is the case and the courts don't rule, then this appears to say that Trump's name, as it stands now, would, in fact, remain on the ballot. Susan writes on the Truth text line, unlike here in Georgia where we elect our Supreme Court justices, in Colorado the governor appoints their Supreme Court, which explains their cockamamie decisions. Texter says, Joey, the Republicans need to fight fire with fire. Joe Biden took an oath to protect us, and he has done anything but. If the Republicans had a backbone, Joe would be tried for treason. There are many seats to become open next year. Republicans need to wear the pavement out seeking votes. Deep down, I don't see Republicans really care about our country and its repression. Faye, I hope you're wrong on that. I think there are a lot of Americans who care. They're just not quite sure what to do. And that's where we all have to jump in, all hands on deck in 2024. That's why next year is so important. Our text of encouragement today, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. John 14:27. God bless and Merry Christmas, the texter says. Thank you. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Love to get your text messages on the Truth text line as well. So the IRS said this week, they're just going to waive penalty fees for people who failed to pay back taxes that total less than $100,000 per year for the tax years 2020, 2021. I'm assuming this is because of the pandemic. Wonder if this applies to Hunter Biden. Were these years that he owed taxes? Maybe a little Hunter, some of his penalties, he'll get those back. Portions of today's show brought to you by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced salespeople who have no appliance knowledge? It's kind of tough to figure out sometimes when you walk into one of the big box stores and they just have a myriad of appliances there to choose from, and not a single person there to really help you with your purchase. That's why I always depend on Jeff and his team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse to help me choose the appliance that I need. And I buy a fair amount of appliances with some of my rental properties and all. And I buy too many appliances, unfortunately. If you want to be treated like family, because that's exactly how they treat you at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, you're more than just a credit card swipe, just a sell to the team over there. They have an award-winning service department. They have the knowledge that you need. They have the confidence that you're going to make the right purchase every single time. If you need a new refrigerator, a new dishwasher, a new washer and dryer, but by the way, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with up to 7-year warranty on parts and labor. Go to Discounted Appliance Warehouse. It's worth the short drive to Pickens. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So nearly 5 million people, businesses, and tax-exempt organizations, most making under $400,000 per year, will be eligible for the relief starting this week, which totals about $1 billion, the IRS says. They temporarily suspended mailing automated reminders to pay overdue tax bills during the pandemic beginning in February 2022, and the agency leadership says that the pause in automated reminders is a reason behind the decision to forgive the failure to pay penalties. In the statement, the IRS wrote, due to the unprecedented effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, these reminders would have normally been issued as a follow-up after the initial notice. Although these reminder notices were suspended, the failure to pay penalty continues to accrue for taxpayers who did not fully pay their bills in response to the initial balance due notice. While the IRS plans to resume sending out normal collection notices, this announcement yesterday meant as a one-time relief based on the unprecedented interruption caused by the pandemic. The IRS Commissioner Daniel Warfel told reporters it was an extraordinary time and the IRS had to take extraordinary steps. He said that the change will be automatic for many taxpayers and will not require additional action. Taxpayers are eligible for automatic relief if they file Form 1040, 1041, 1120 series, or a Form 990 tax return for years 2020 and 2021, and they owe less than $100,000 per year in back taxes. He said if people paid the failure to pay penalty, they'll get a refund. Werfel said that on a call with reporters, people need to know the IRS is on their side. I'm going to have to laugh at that one. Have you ever felt like the IRS is on your side? I could only hope. Quick note here. American wrestler Hulk Hogan announced on Instagram yesterday that he had been baptized in a special ceremony at the Indian Rocks Baptist Church in Florida. He's 70 years old. He posted on Instagram along with a short video saying, total surrender and dedication to Jesus is the greatest day of my life. No worries, no hate, no judgment, only love. Hogan's wife, Sky Daly Hogan, also took part in the baptism, which involved fully submerging themselves in this baptismal. Video footage shows Hogan and his wife both in white, smiling as they were dipped into the water. Hogan also wore his trademark bandana in white, along with a silver cross necklace for the occasion. The professional wrestler, who has in the past talked about his faith, shared on his X account, I accepted Christ as my Savior at 14 years old, and the training, prayers, and vitamins kept me in the game. But now that I am one with God, the main event theme of surrender, service, and love makes me the real main event that can slam any giant of any size through the power of my Lord and Savior. So it is even now, brother. Amen. God bless him. You know, I had a friend who was recently baptized. I wasn't there, but I was told by some who were in the service that when the pastor gave him an opportunity to say something after his baptismal, he said, hell just lost another one. That's a good way to put it, isn't it? You've escaped the clutches of the devil. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list, please do so. Visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. And if you're listening and you haven't subscribed or followed the podcast, click on that button so that you get the automated notices. And we want to grow this movement. Talk with your friends. Share this podcast. Send this link to a friend of yours. Text it to them. Email it to them. If every one of you will do that, we can continue to grow the people that we're going to reach. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Keep your comments coming on the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep your emails coming to joey@joeyhudson.com as well. Have a great rest of your day. We're back tomorrow. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.